How are you? It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yes. Can we start with our interview?
Sure, let's go ahead.
Okay. What does freedom of expression mean to you?
Okay, freedom of expression is one of the most one of the most basic rights that we humans have. And it's the capacity of express our ideas without any fear of any repression.
Okay. Second question. Do you believe there is freedom of expression in Ecuador?
Unfortunately, there's no freedom of expression because even though we can speak in when we are in private meetings, or even we can express our ideas when we have public interviews, we have the fear that we can be repressed by the government. So that it doesn't mean that we have freedom of expression. There are many non-governmental institutions that measure freedom of expression. One of the most important one is the Freedom House, and in this year, Ecuador has been classified as a country that doesn't have freedom of expression.
How would you compare freedom of expression in Ecuador versus other Latin American countries?
Well, in Latin America, there are two countries where lacking freedom of expression, and that's Ecuador and Venezuela. And the conditions are similar right now. The government owns most of the TV stations and radio stations and controls by different ways the freedom of expression. And then there's Argentina, where freedom of expression is not going through a good period, but there is that the Argentine case is a little better than the Ecuadorian and the Venezuelan case. Then in the other countries, not only me, but again Freedom House and other NGOs have been very optimistic with the advances. It is the belief that the most free country in Latin America is Chile, followed closely by Colombia. Then I believe all the other countries as a group.
Do you feel freedom of expression in Ecuador has improved or worsened during the past 10 years?
Oh no, it has worsened. And it has worsened very dramatically during this government, during Mr. Correa's government. Before that, in Ecuador, we really didn't have a bad situation with freedom of expression. Even though we don't have a perfect democracy, freedom of expression and a good judicial system, we're pretty much in the same path as other countries in Latin America. During the last 10 years, the freedom of expression has been almost suppressed with the different actions that the government has taken. First, the government took private companies, private TV stations, and private newspaper took as part of make it part of the government. Then it started to penalizing the public opinion, and then this government approved a law that is called Ley de Communication Law, that is considered even by the United Nations as a censorship of the freedom of expression.
Can you draw a comparison of freedom of expression during the dictatorships in Ecuador and the current democracy?
Well, the last dictatorship that we have ended in 1978, so it's been a long time. So I really don't remember how what it was really. But even though during the last dictator or military dictatorship, TV stations and radios and newspapers and people didn't fear as much as today. So even though right now we live in a so-called democracy, because I don't believe that we live in a democracy, because democracy is not only electing a president. Democracy is being able to accomplish these fundamental rights. And one of the rights, as I told you before, one of the most elemental rights is freedom of expression. So even though I don't believe that we live under a democracy right now, if we compare this government or this time in history with the last dictatorship or military dictatorship, we are a lot worse right now.
Does the media have the power to suppress freedom of expression?
Well, I think that the media, on the contrary, the media is the only channel, the only active channel that can encourage freedom of expression. Of course, there are some cases in the world and here in Ecuador where the media has been used for the wrong reasons. But speaking in a general context, the media is the channel through, the media is the only channel where the real freedom of expression can be expressed.
What do you think needs to be done to improve freedom of expression?
Well, first we need to suppress the ley de comunicación, the communications law. That's a really important thing to do. Second, the government has to, the new government, I believe that this government is not going to do it, but the next government will need to sell all the media, all the TV channels and all the newspapers that controls, and has to understand that freedom of expression is important for the development of the society. So it's more what we can do. We cannot do much as a society. It's the authorities, it's the government that needs to change completely and to accept and to open itself to freedom of expression.
So as a society we cannot speak up because the government has the power?
No, we need to speak up. The thing is that we ourselves cannot change things. We need the government. So we need the executive branch and we need the legislative, we need Congress in order to accomplish this. So we need to speak up. We need to maintain this attitude of fighting for freedom, for all the freedoms. I mean, there's something called the system of freedoms, and it's freedom of expression, is freedom of enterprise, of freedom of empresa, freedom of enterprise. It's freedom of thought, what is called freedom of printing, so you can print whatever you think, freedom of association. Those freedoms are called the system of freedoms. So freedom is one, but it can be channelized by many ways. So we need to speak up and we need to continue speaking up. And young people as you are if there's something important for our future, for your future and the future of the next generations, is to fight for freedom.
Do you think media plays an important role in improving freedom of expression?
Of course. Without media, because right now media is under great pressure. There are only a few newspapers left, and there are only a few TV stations left, and a few radios left. But without their compromise, their work, we would have we wouldn't have any possibility of recovering that freedom of expression. So we would live right now in a complete obscure and totalitarian government. And there are only a few countries in the world living that way. Before, let's say 10 years ago, or 25 years ago, or 30 years ago, there were many countries living in this dark and non-free system. Right now, there are only a few. North Korea is a completely totalitarian and non-free country where there's no freedom of expression. Cuba is another example. The Soviet Union is an example. Maybe some of the fundamentalistic countries in the Arab world are examples of again. And in Latin America, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Cuba. So there's only a few. Before, 30 years ago, many countries in the world didn't accept the freedom of expression, and this system of freedoms that are so important, maybe the most important thing in a society is freedom.
Okay, so that's everything.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your interview, and congratulations for your clear and straightforward questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.